J.P. Williams of the J.P. Williams Blues Band. You're tuned to WCOM-LP, Chapel Hill and Carrboro Station for the best in blues.
All right, and there I go, walking across the stage. Welcome to the Carrboro Radio Hour on WCOM 103.5, Carrboro's Community Radio. This is Jennifer Yorkovich, editor and publisher of the Carrboro, a new-ish local newspaper in Carrboro. And today we have special guests to talk about a special holiday production. Many of you are familiar with the Nutcracker Ballet, based on E.T.A. Hoffman's story, The Nutcracker and the Mouse King, and its exquisite score, composed by Pyotr Ilyich Tchaikovsky. It was first performed in 1892, and the Triangle Youth Ballet continues this noble tradition 133 years on with its iconic annual production of The Nutcracker, which you can see December 11th, 12th, and 13th at 7 p.m., and also on the 13th at 2 p.m. at the Carolina Theater in Durham. Today we'll hear more of that music interspersed with our conversation, and with that, I'll introduce our special guests. Lorentz de Haas is the director of Triangle Youth Ballet, and Andrew McAfee is the conductor of the Tchaikovsky Virtuosi, which convenes annually for this production. Welcome, Lauren and Andrew.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jen.
Thanks for joining me in the studio today. I'm so thrilled to talk about this production that I love and was so lucky to be part of for several years. My daughter performed in this production 7 seasons, and I performed 4 as a parent dancer in the party scene, which was a very special experience and a lot of fun. Throughout this show, I'm going to play pieces recorded from the production in 2018. So you just heard the overture opening. And I have to confess that my stomach still clenches a little bit when I hear that part, because that's right before I would walk onto the stage. It's the very first scene in the production. So Lauren, let's go back to the beginning. Take us back to when TYB, Triangle Youth Ballet, first performed The Nutcracker. What year was that?
That was in 1995, and the thought of starting it happened in the summer. And all of the things that I thought I needed to do, I tried to get done as fast as possible. And we were incorporated and ready to go on the 5th of July. And we had our first set of auditions in August. And we got on stage miraculously the first weekend in December.
Well, and how many cast members did you have?
We were pretty small at that point. We had a total of 56 people in the cast. There were 9 dancers in the senior company. Now we're sort of double that in the senior company. In our fullest performance years, we're double that completely. I think the most we've had in the show was 114 on stage, which is a lot of kids backstage. And the first year, because we had 0 budget and really almost nothing. The party scene couch was a park bench from roses that we upholstered, and the grandfather clock was made out of stacked cardboard boxes covered in wood-grained contact paper, and the costumes were just as much as we could put together at the time on a very shoestring budget. We had a lot of great community support. The printers were ready to give us credit until we started selling tickets. I mean, just so many people stepped up to help us get going.
Wow. And Andrew, tell us how the Tchaikovsky Virtuosi got started.
When I left the North Carolina Symphony, I was principal horn there for 15 years. I wanted to go into conducting full-time. I was getting a master's, and I wanted to get my resume built out. I had already been doing a lot of conducting in the summer times and with other youth orchestras, and I thought, I could do that. I had probably 200 performances under my belt as a horn player, and I thought I knew it pretty well. So I approached Lauren and said, hey, would you allow me to give you live music if I could, provide it for free? And of course, she said yes. And well, I don't know if that was of course. I mean,
that was, I think, you are my new best friend, I think is what I said. And can we go have coffee?
So I gave it a shot, and we did some really challenging repertoire. We did Snow.
We started out with Sleeping Beauty. You said you'd like to play for the Nutcracker, and I said, wait, we do another Tchaikovsky thing before that. How about Sleeping Beauty?
Oh my gosh, what a tough score! So I gave it a try. I got all of the local players together, the college players that I knew, the community orchestra players. We put it together, and we actually survived it. But it was really hard, and I first learned that there's one thing just to play it, but then actually to really sound good was completely different.
And do you remember when you started? What year was that? We had live music?
2008?
I think so. 2008, yeah.
2008. Wow. So several years now. Andrew, can you tell us a little bit about your background in music? You mentioned having hundreds of performances under your belt at that point.
Yeah, ever since I was a little kid, music has been in my life. My mom danced the ballet, and she said, whatever you, just pick an instrument. You got to do something. So I was fourth, and the baritone, trombone, and trumpet were taken. So I heard this unique sound on the radio and said, Mom, what's that? I said, that's the French horn. So I took up French horn, and I excelled because, I had to compete with my brothers. So got all the way through college and everything, went into music, and I was the only one that stayed in music, too. There's a joke in there somewhere. But professional musician, French horn teacher, both at UNC as well as professional principal horn in the North Carolina Symphony for 15 years and doing conducting at the same time. And it kind of all led together. I was done with horn and wanted to move on in my life with conducting.
Right. And Lauren, how about your background in dance? Did you always want to have a school for young dancers?
I always wanted to teach. I was very inspired by Miss Josie von Strasnicek, a teacher of my childhood. She was just inspirational and bright, and she was just a big force in my life. And so I always wanted to teach. I don't know that I ever wanted to own a studio, but teaching kids was something that I wanted to do, and started teaching at Barbara Bound's studio, golly, I'm guessing in the late 70s. I'm thinking, yeah, mid-70s. And just continued on with the normal everythings, the getting ready for the end of the year recital. And it was actually that which said, they need another performance opportunity. And that was when I started. I was still teaching with Barbara when the Triangle Youth Ballet, the nonprofit that just was going to do the Nutcracker, started. Barbara Bounds was the first grandma, actually, in our production.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And that started, the idea for doing the Nutcracker production happened midway through the year, right? In July or something, a few months before.
Yeah, before we were going to start it. Yeah, it I tend to get an idea and then just sort of go with it without thinking things through. And this is a product of that. But I wouldn't have it any other way. It is way, way fun.
It is very fun. Do you both remember the first time or early in your life when you saw the Nutcracker performed, and what impression that made on you?
I do remember seeing the Nutcracker as a child. My mom had getting the whole family to do Bulgarian dancing as children, so I had already been accustomed to going to the theater, and I remember being very impressed with the snow falling and the music. But as a child, I had zero appreciation for really how hard it is. But I was struck with the community of it, with all these people and the families, and that always stuck with me. And I'll talk more about that later.
Okay, great. And Lauren?
I don't think I ever saw the Nutcracker live as a child. I think the first ones were, late teenage years and on, and then for a period of time before the Triangle Youth Ballet started, my husband and I would travel and see a different Nutcracker in a different city every year. It was an annual thing. So Atlanta Ballet and Washington School of Ballet, and so it was just a thing that we did, and they're magical.
They're magical. And you noticed regional differences in the productions, didn't you, when you saw those?
Yes, there are so many regional differences. Actually, there's a ballet company in Key West that does an entire Under the Sea version of the Nutcracker, and there's a version in the Southwest that does a complete version that's sort of on the plains, and Mother Ginger is a beehive, and the bees come out. It's just people who take it and make it their own. For me, I try to go with what is most accessible to my inner child, and as pure and happy and youthful as possible.
When I saw it in Washington, D.C., living there, they had a cherry blossom princess. So it's one of the magical things about this production is that it does become regionally focused, and it is so fun to put unique stamps on it. So let's hear a little more of that music now. There we are. So that piece, we were just talking here in the studio about what that is called. In my mind, it's the Peppermint Dance. I think this year, Lauren, you said it's...
This year, it's based more on sort of the Russian nesting dolls, the Matryoshka dolls. So we have 4 different size children dancing, and then a member of the senior company who, she's not like in her 20s, she's a high school senior at 17, but and she's the lead of that, and it's in traditional kind of folk dancing costume as opposed to red and white stripe. The sense of the choreography changes, as not quite as swirly as Peppermint, but it's definitely jumpy and fun with coffee grinders for those of you who are familiar with vaudeville dance steps, but yeah.
And Andrew, I think we were talking a bit about the challenge with calibrating the tempo of the music to different dancers and how that affects your work there in the orchestra pit. Can you tell us more about that?
Pretty much, we have this is the tempo it's going to go, and then I try to hit that, but the music is so hard, and if each year we kind of have to gear up, and it takes a couple of services to be able to actually play it at the tempo that is in my head, at least. So there's a transition there, and then two, each year, there's individual personalities that I want to support with, have a soloist, and they have a specific type of tempo or an ending they want to do. So we have a couple services to work out that tempo. And then there's just always, the fatigue factor of, am I tired, or, I have more energy and want to feel up, or there's a different mood. So it's always a little bit of a moving target, and by the end, I get pretty close.
He gets spot on.
Do you have a favorite piece of music from this ballet? Either of you?
Andrew, what do you have as a favorite?
My favorite is when it's big number 9. It's Snow. It's where the children's choir sings. It's very touching.
And Lauren?
That part, I have a few friends at that part. It always makes them cry. Yeah. It's really quite beautiful. I could agree with that, but if somebody else said it was the March or the Sugar Plum of the Children or the Columbine or whatever I'm listening to in the moment, I just sort of get swallowed up by the music, and it is so enjoyable. It's my favorite in the moment. I know that's sort of a cop-out answer, but I just love all of the music.
All right, let's listen to that now. We'll bring up Snow, or part of Snow. It's a long piece, so we'll start when the Snow Queen returns. so that was The Return of the Snow Queen, Blizzard, Snow Recedes, and The Sleigh going off, which takes us to the end of Act 1. And this is a good time to say, you're listening to WCOM 103.5, Carborough's Community Radio. So, when I spoke with Kate Curran, Associate Director of Triangle Youth Ballet, a few weeks ago, she commented on a particular aspect of this production that she finds special, which is the institutional memory that of the dancers. That the dancers have this knowledge of choreography from watching older students perform and from themselves rejoining the company each year to take on new roles. And so many students learn the dances almost independently of instruction. And so, Lauren, I was wondering if, what you think about that, and if you think that phenomenon is somewhat unique to this production.
I don't know if it's unique to our production. I have a feeling that there are regional youth companies throughout that do the Nutcracker every year, and the folks who are in it return year after year and learn what they do at age 8 versus what might be available to them at age 10, that maybe and 12, and sort of have an eye towards the future, maybe a little bit too closely to depend on what needs we have for what dancers we have and what's going to be each role. But I can tell you that every year when we go into a theater, we just did this past weekend, went into a theater to block and rehearse on a stage, and while the senior company is doing Flowers or the Sugar Plum is dancing, the little angels are in the back of the theater doing all of the choreography. And I had a flashback to that last week when our 2 Snow Queens, who 10 years ago were little angels and have danced every year in the Nutcracker since, and there are the 2 Plums this year, and I'm just remembering them at age 8 doing all that plum choreography in their angel costume in the back of the theater. So it does connect and grow. So sometimes maybe a little too closely there, where people are going, well, if you wear this color dress at the party scene, you're going to have this role next year kind of situation. But no matter how much we warn people to not try to precast things, it still happens.
Yeah. Andrew, the musicians, the virtuosi, do you have to find new musicians every year, or do they come back?
Fortunately, I don't have to find any this year or any year, because I hire someone now to do that. But fortunately, there are a lot of people that come back year after year, and that's why we can do this as well as we do, is we have longevity in our ranks. And there's no learning this piece fresh. I mean, it's a joke. If you sit down and you've never seen it, I've had people actually say, I've heard the Nutcracker, and yeah, I've played excerpts from it. I'm ready to go, and they had no idea how hard it is. So once you've played it 2 or 3 years, then I can count that you're actually going to contribute rather than be a detriment to the ensemble. It's that hard. So we fortunately have people that have been with us 8-10 years. So there's very little turnover, fortunately, and we keep a lot of that experience intact.
Mm-hmm. And how is it different playing for someone to perform? I mean, you mentioned earlier having to adjust tempo, and that in your role as conductor, you're trying to keep all the musicians together and follow the dancer, and to keep everything moving. But I'm wondering, for a musician coming into a production like this, you're not playing in an orchestra for an audience. You're playing, accompanying a visual, a dancer, a live thing going on. And I'm wondering if that's challenging for musicians, if that transition is, a noticeable one for them, or something they have to work on.
It is, because as an orchestra, you're on the stage, and all you're doing is you're just following the conductor. But now this is real world. You're actually doing something that's delivering a third party. So I'm looking at the dancers, and I'm adjusting there, and all the players below me or besides me have to, 1, listen, be together, 2, follow me, and then 3, adjust to a different element rather than just their colleagues. So it is a very, very different than just playing in an orchestra.
No matter how well you know that piece, you're still needing to follow the conductor who is adjusting things as it's going along.
It's not enough
Yeah.
to know the piece.
Yeah.
You have to then be free enough to adjust. And there are plenty of, and I have a couple of cues that are with gestures with my hand. And I like playing tricks with people in the first rehearsal to see how many people are new or not. And I will do, there's rules in ballet, that if you start a tune too soon, I'm going to put my hand up like a traffic cop and stop you immediately because you are cueing a dancer on the stage to step out, and I have to stop you or I have to speed you up to where you were. There's rules.
Yeah. It's complicated. It's much more complicated than it looks from the audience. I can tell you all that from being backstage.
Hopefully, if you're in the audience, you don't notice any of the tech. You don't notice any of the comings and goings. You don't notice specifically costumes. You don't notice you don't notice the music. If you're noticing the music, something is awry. If you're noticing the formation, something is awry. So hopefully the whole thing looks effortless, seamless, and magical, and that there aren't people running around on their hands and knees backstage, putting bobby pins in places. And I just did, getting the headpieces attached, and that there's chaos in the wings as they're getting ready to get on stage. But
the audience is oblivious to that.
I hope so. and I just want to mention one thing that went through my head. We had to take 2 years off for social distancing purposes, and the year that we came back, and I'm typesetting the playbill for the year that we're back, and 95% of the orchestra names I did not have to change. And I sat at my computer and I cried. It was so amazing that everybody who had played with us in 2019 came back in 2022.
Right. That's a testament to the production and the kind of commitment people feel, that it inspires this community involvement, which brings me to my next question about the connections to community and how important that is for this production in particular. So we talked about parents backstage, keeping young dancers in costume in their places, lining them up when they need to go out, the musicians who return, the special needs performances that you have each year, all these different ways to connect to the community. Can you tell us more about that, why that's important to you?
I don't know why it's important to me, but I know that it is. And I think that we, as a nonprofit, I feel it's important to reach out and work with other nonprofits whenever we can. For a string of years, we were official Toys for Tots collection, and now we have switched for the Chapel Hill Service League. They have a Christmas house every year, and the school, the Triangle Youth Ballet, the school, does a parking lot show and toy drive. We just did one a couple of weeks ago for the Christmas house, and we have a toy collection manned by dancing toy soldiers. So if you bring a toy to our show, you will get a fresh and enthusiastic 8-year-old salute, so that we can help make connections. We did Dracula a month ago, and we connected with the Red Cross. In January, we're going to be doing a toy drive for Book Harvest. It's just, I think it's important for all of the kids that we can help bring up into the world to realize that giving back is really important, and they put all of this talent that they have and their hard work into a production, and that they can also not just have fun but do good things with it. And Edie Hoffenberg is our community outreach person and takes care of reaching out to organizations and nonprofits for folks who wouldn't otherwise have an opportunity to come see a show. And the kids love the special needs performance more than any other. And they know that if they hear some sounds from the audience, it's enthusiasm, and they look forward to going out and meeting the guests and signing autographs. And it's really incredibly sweet and special.
It sure is, yeah. It's one of my favorite memories, too. And so with that, here's a shout out to all the parent dancers out there. We're going to play the parent dance.
I remember you, Jen, on stage in that beautiful blue dress.
Yes, I was in the Blurple family.
Which meant she had children in both blue and purple costumes.
That's right. Those were fun times. But let's talk a bit about the commitment required of dancers to be in a production like this. When it starts in August, doesn't it?
It does start in August for the senior company. Their auditions are the third Wednesday in August, and it's open to the community. This first audition is for more advanced dancers. It's for the dancers who are going to fill the core of the Waltz of the Flowers and the Waltz of the Snowflakes, and those are all point pieces, so they need to be pretty strong on point. And they begin with casting week, which is somewhat similar to that thing of people learning all the dances. So if you're 12 and you've just joined, been accepted into the senior company, then that means in 1 week you learn every solo dance that is in the show. And that means that absolutely everybody who's, like if you're 18 and you joined the senior company when you were 12 or 13, you have done them every year. That means that at the drop of a hat, I can touch anybody and say, sorry, our Mouse King is feeling woozy, put that costume on and jump on stage, and they can, which is a wonderful kind of interconnectiveness for everything. After we get finished with casting week, which is 7 days in a row, 6 hours on weekends and 3 hours in the afternoons after school, the first week that school starts, then they go to once a week until November, and then they're twice a week. And all of those folks, plus all the ones who are like ages 8 and up who audition the third Saturday in September, they know that they are committed every week and they need to say no to family reunions and family trips and birthday parties and all of that. And I really, people think that I'm harsh, but I'm sort of protecting the integrity of all of the people who gave up everything every year before. But I think that it's important for kids to learn about commitment and prioritizing and like thinking it's okay to give up your commitment to everybody else in the piece to go see a movie with your friends. It is disrespectful for everybody else who's working to the same goal. And there is so much that you can get out of everyone working together, working to the same goal. It's probably even a little bit more intense than being on a sports team. It's just, it really makes me proud that kids understand that stick-to-itiveness is worth something.
Right. Yeah, great to learn that here in in an art production, right? Stick-to-itiveness is important for any aspect of life, right? All aspects of life.
I feel that dance training, just broad-based, without even like production orientation, applies to just about every field. Self-confidence, eye contact with grown-ups. It's lovely to see kids have that. Being able to have conversations with anybody. When I see like young teenagers go to the foot of the stage and ask, Mr. McAfee, could that be just a little slower on the turns and then a little faster right at the end, please and thank you? I'm so proud that they have a voice and they can share what they need. And Andrew, I don't have a lot of experience with conductors, but the stories I've heard, he is a rare gem where all he wants to do is make sure everybody on stage looks their best.
Andrew, turning to you now, you mentioned mentorship and how that's inspiring to you. Say more about that.
The Triangle Youth Ballet is unique in the country, in my opinion. There's other youth programs that have, live music perhaps. But in my opinion, how rare is it that you get to have your children invested in a production like this, delivering it, and it's the elation and trials and tribulations involved in it. But then year after year, you get to come together again and look up to other children. Now, when I was in high school or in junior high, my peers were the only thing that was important to me. Forget the family, they're embarrassing, I just want to go hang out. So, with that said, our tribal natures have been just eviscerated in modern culture. We're married to our cell phones now. Finally, the TYB has this wholesome, great activity that's a mind-body connection ballet. And also with music, you're coordinating and you're working with your colleagues, your peers, adults, and then year after year, you look up to, I want to be like her. I want to do that position. They got all the limelight. They got all the attention. So I'm going to work really hard. And I'm going to become Clara, or I'm going to become the lead. And that is, what we've been missing as, it's been rinsed out of our culture, is that wholesome, example of what we can become and work together and create something beautiful and wholesome. And I would agree it's better than a sport because we're working together for the same thing and everybody wins.
Everybody wins. Yeah, great. All right, well, Andrew, for you, I'm going to play a piece with horns. Can you guess which one it is?
Also the flowers.
No, that's going to come later, but okay. Let's get into Spanish Chocolate.
Oh, great.
Spanish Chocolate. All right, we're back in the studio with Lorentz de Haas, director of Triangle Youth Ballet, and Andrew McAfee, conductor of the Tchaikovsky Virtuosi. And we're here at WCOM 103.5 Carborough's Community Radio. Great moments over the years. What comes to mind?
Well, I was chatting with Andrew, and he was talking about things that go awry and the recoveries from them. And I think that the things that stick in my head the most are the things that were just a little funny and not as planned, and how we got over them. The one that I remember the most clearly is the Cavalier, who is the male dancer with the Sugar Plum Fairy, more enthusiastically than usual, tossed her out of a catch, and she landed on her bottom, and she slid on the stage about 4 feet with her feet in front of her flexed and her arms by her sides like a baby doll. And she looked at the audience, and she smiled, and she winked, and she jumped back up, and she kept finishing the dance. And then I'm on the other side of the stage, and I see across the stage her bent over the prop table, sort of heaving like she's crying. And I run around through the backstage crossover and go to her, and she is laughing hysterically. And that kind of like bounce back was just endearing to me.
That's a great story. Yeah. Andrew, do you have one?
I have too many, but one's really, when I was in Columbus, Ohio, doing the Nutcracker there 30 times, we had fog opening on the second act. The curtains open, and same thing with the Triangle Youth Ballet. We have this big dump of fog that comes billowing out into the pit, and you can't see for a second. And when I was in Columbus, they would bring props like umbrellas and other things that would deflect the fog. And one time, somebody brought a headlamp over their head, like a miner's cap, and the personnel manager put the kibosh on that. But we had a few things similar that with us. We had a drum fall in the pit one year, and some other fun things. So we had our own excitement there. But I would say that the greatest drama we had is, unfortunately, one year our harpist got sick. And that's an impossible thing to replace. So we called all over the eastern coast to try to find a harpist that was qualified, that could sight read. You already know it. You've played it 50 times, and you can step in and do that. We finally got that, and everybody, pitched in and made it work, and we've, made the performance. But that's not the kind of anxiety anybody wants to feel.
No, certainly not. Disasters and recoveries. The recoveries are the triumphant parts of the story here. What else do you want listeners to know about this production before we close?
Oh, we have families who return year after year. This would be our 30th year since we were founded, and I think the draw and the magic of this is it's very accessible to all members of the family. Even the youngest toddler stays mesmerized for quite a while for this show. That the kids who are on stage are so happy and thrilled to be on stage doing the Nutcracker that even if you're in the back row, their excitement is palpable all the way to the back of the house. They just really adore being on stage and doing this. And the thing that I'm going to share as my own personal little secret here is every time I walk into the theater and I hear the orchestra tuning up, I get goosebumps, and I can't believe that it's our production. It's still like... It fills me with awe. So please come see these kids and all their hard work on stage.
Lauren has created magic here in Carrboro, and it's going to be at the Durham Theater. You've got to bring your family. This is the magic of the season. If you don't have children, buy tickets and give them to somebody that does have children, or bring them. They will be forever affected positively by seeing this community. Everybody in the pit wants to be there. It's captive. It's an environment that is family. You bring your family, you experience family. You get the love of people working together, and you get the message of Christmas, and you get the message of family.
I agree. It is magical. Thank you both so much for coming to the studio today And thank you all out there for listening. You can see the Triangle Youth Ballet perform the Nutcracker December 11th, 12th, and 13th at 7 p.m., and also on the 13th at 2 p.m. in the Carolina Theater in Durham. You can also find a preview of this performance in the new free print issue of the Carberean, which will be available around town in Carrboro, as well as locations in Chapel Hill, Hillsborough, and Pittsburgh tomorrow. The Carberean Radio Hour returns next week, same time, same place, Monday 4 to 5. We will bring you an interesting show. Topic is still to be determined, but tune in to find out. Also, our pop-up newsroom is here in the Drakeford building, starting in a few minutes in the main lobby area. Come by to talk about what's happening in Carrboro, stories you'd like to hear, and stories you'd like to tell. Check us out online at thecarberean.com. Thanks to WCOM 103.5 for this partnership. We're going to close out with the Waltz of the Flowers. Andrew, Lauren, thanks so much for being here.
Thank you so much, Jen.
Thank you, Jen.